Trump breaking news. Legal Analyst. Trump gag order may suppress violence-inspiring bombast. According to legal expert Glenn Kirshner, who expects that the most recent gag order against Donald Trump will limit his endlessly deadly, violence-inspiring language, the order is well-deserved. Presidencing over the trial involving financial transactions from Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, Justice Juan Merchan of the New York State Supreme Court imposed a gag order on Tuesday, limiting what the former president can say publicly about anyone involved in the case. Along with a slew of other gag orders, Trump is facing a barrage of legal challenges. The campaign of the former president has claimed that these restrictions infringe on his First Amendment rights, in an episode of his Justice Matters podcast, which was uploaded on X, previously Twitter, on Tuesday night. Kirshner, a prominent Trump critic and former deputy U.S. attorney, weighed in on the third gag order the former president issued. "My first reaction is to fully support any gag order that aims to silence Donald Trump and prevent him from jeopardizing the safety of everyone working to bring him to justice for his crimes," Kirshner stated. "Witnesses, jurors, prosecutors, court personnel, and members of the court's family are all in danger due to Donald Trump's actions. I don't understand why, instead of confronting Donald Trump for his deadly and violent statements, we insist on putting everyone's safety at risk in our efforts to hold him accountable for his crimes." Newsweek contacted Kirshner and Trump's aides via email late Tuesday night to request a statement. In his many criticisms of Trump's speech, the ex-prosecutor has accused the MAGA leader of provoking violence and putting Americans in peril. "There will be a bloodbath for the country if Trump, the presumed GOP presidential nominee, loses in November," according to Kirshner's recent condemnation of Trump's comments at a rally. Hours before Trump's attack on Merchan and his daughter in a Truth Social post on Tuesday, referring to the judge as a confirmed Trump hater, the president issued the gag order. Kirshner criticized Trump for the social media post, claiming that the former president signals to his fans to get them whenever he names someone he perceives as an enemy. According to the legal analyst, Trump poses a threat to civilization. "Donald Trump ought to be the one held until trial because he poses a threat to the town and its residents, otherwise, it's as if we're living in an upside-down world. Aside from his felony trials, he is on pre-trial release," according to Kirshner. "But no, we continue to skirt the issue by issuing gag orders and instructing him not to say certain things, all the while putting the safety of others at risk." On Tuesday, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant will meet with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. U.S. officials have said that Gallant will ask for more U.S. weapons and equipment to support Israel's war in Gaza. This is a very sensitive request because lawmakers and critics of President Joe Biden's support for Israel are closely watching U.S. weapons sales to Israel. Officials added that the weapons sales were also anticipated to be covered during Gallant's Monday conversations with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and his first visit to the Pentagon as Israeli defense minister will be to meet with Austin. Meetings between U.S. officials and an Israeli group to discuss Israel's military plans for southern Gaza take place at a time when relations between the two countries have touched rock bottom. On Monday, a separate Israeli delegation withdrew from the scheduled meetings. Following the United States' decision not to veto a resolution by the UN Security Council demanding an immediate end to the fighting and the unconditional release of all hostages held in Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to cancel the delegation's trip. On Monday, John Kirby, a spokesperson for the National Security Council, expressed disappointment that the Saudis would not be visiting Washington, D.C., so they could engage in a thorough discussion with them over possible alternatives to conducting foot operations in Rafah. According to various officials and sources aware with the requests who spoke with CNN, Israeli defense officials have been urging their U.S. counterparts to expedite the clearance and completion of the weapons transfers, despite the heightened tensions. There were rumors that Gallant would be bringing a list of U.S. weapons and equipment that Israel wants to purchase and have delivered quickly in a phone conversation with Austin last week before his Sunday trip to Washington, D.C. The list reportedly included more F-35 and F-15 fighter jets, as well as more precision-guided munitions. A senior administration official said CNN that Gallant will be informed that the different cases involving the sale of guns are being worked on. According to the individual who spoke with CNN, there is examination, but no policy decision to reject the supply of additional weapons to Israel. According to last week's report by the Health Ministry of the Enclave, over 32,000 have lost their lives in Gaza since October. Americans familiar with the conversation said that Austin frequently reminds Gallant that Israel is losing support from around the world because it isn't doing more to safeguard and assist the Enclave's people, and that Israel is utilizing U.S.-provided weapons for its operations in the Enclave. Officials have stated that since the war started, the Defense Secretary's stance on the provision of weaponry to Israel has remained relatively unchanged. According to Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Patrick Ryder, the Secretary still believes strongly in Israel's inherent right to protect themselves and that we will continue to support them in that regard, a statement made on Monday. That foundation is rock solid. Another U.S. official stated that the U.S. has been advising Israel to avoid amassing weaponry for an eventual huge battle with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and that this has been a worry within the administration. According to another source, the U.S. is aware that Israel needs to restock its supplies in order to re-establish deterrence, as the war is depleting them. If the Israeli Defense Forces fail to secure a resounding triumph over Hamas in Gaza, according to Gallant's Monday comments, Israel might get closer to a northern battle with Lebanon. The continued captivity of Palestinians in Gaza makes it immoral to end the conflict, Gallant argued. If we don't win in Gaza, it might lead to a conflict up north. As Netanyahu considers a large-scale military invasion of Rafah, the location of over 1 million Palestinians who have taken sanctuary there since the war started, the Biden administration has also been discussing the possibility of conditional military aid to Israel and how to implement it. American authorities have spoken out against the idea of an offensive like this, and rightfully so, given that Israel has failed to provide the Biden administration with a strategy for protecting civilians throughout the operation. An official in the U.S. administration stated, "If there is one, it would be something we would want to hear." The person went on to say that the U.S. is increasingly considering penalties for disregarding their urgings. Kirby stated on Monday that a ground operation in Rafah is not the best option. An official Pentagon transcript states that last week, Austin advised Gallant to explore alternatives to a big ground campaign in Rafah and that Israel should look into other options. The U.S. has failed to halt the transfer of weaponry despite mounting pressure from the Biden administration on Israel to ensure the safety of Gazan civilians, permit greater humanitarian aid into the enclave, and avoid a conflict with Hezbollah. According to a source familiar with a confidential briefing that U.S. legislators heard last month, the U.S. has made over 100 foreign weapons sales to Israel since Hamas' attack on Israel in October. According to the source, a single deal can involve numerous shipments of weapons. Normally, Congress has to approve or reject foreign military sales before they can proceed. However, according to a CNN official familiar with the situation, the majority of U.S. sales to Israel since October 7, especially the individual munitions sales, have been below the specific dollar amount that necessitates notifying Congress. However, the insider stated that the sales end up being many thousands of bombs in aggregate, even though they are supplied in batches. With the use of emergency powers, the State Department was able to avoid congressional approval for just 2 of these sales since October, one for 155mm shell components and one for tank ammunition. Nevertheless, the person warned that Congress will need to evaluate and approve the sale of additional fighter jets to Israel, which is sure to spark heated discussion. In a national security memorandum last month, the Biden administration formalized the Democratic senators' demand that the U.S. withhold military aid from Israel until the Jewish state gives trustworthy guarantees that it is abiding by international humanitarian law. U.S. officials are still evaluating Israel's actions, according to State Department spokesman Matthew Miller, who stated on Monday that the United States has obtained such guarantees from Israel. Both the national security memoranda and the assurances from Israel yesterday did not initiate or halt the ongoing assessments, according to Miller. They will continue.